Hello grade 10s. Welcome back to the channel. In today's lesson, we're going to be continuing with algebra, but this time we're doing factorizing by grouping. And let's get right into it. So I know a lot of you get anxious when it comes to factorizing by grouping, but in today's lesson, I'm going to share with you a very simple and easy strategy to tackling this question, and you shall cry no more. So now, when looking at these questions, you want to check if you have any common factors in between your terms. So we can see here we have 4 terms. Remember, we said terms are separated by either a plus or minus sign. So we can say first term, second term, third term, and fourth term, right? So now we want to check, do we have any common factor between the first and the second term? If you can check it, the numbers here. So let me fix that, right? So that's 6x squared y according to the question. So do we have any common factors in between the first and the second term? We can see that the numbers that we have is 6 and 10. And if we say our common factor is 2, 2 is a common factor because it goes into 6, leaves no remainder, and also goes to 10 and leaves no remainder. So now what we are going to do is we're going to try to write these numbers in terms of their factors. So we said the common factor is 2. So if we have to write 6 in terms of factors, including the 2, we're going to have 2 times 3, right? So now I'm going to try to expand this x squared so that I have x like that. And then this is x, y. Now to write 10 in terms of factors, we're going to have 2 multiplied by 5. So note that is not 25, it's 2 times 5. Then we have x, y. Then plus, if we look at the third term and the fourth term, is there a common factor in between these terms? Yes, there is. It's 5. So 5 can go into 15 and leave no remainder, and also can go to 25 and leave no remainder. So we have 5. Now we want to write 15 in terms of factors, so that's 5 times 3, but we have x, so it's 5 times 3x. Then 25 in terms of factors, we have 5 times 5, right? Now we want to go and check all our like terms. So what is common? Not our like terms, our common factor, meant to say. So we want to go and check our common factors. So this is 2. And also in the second term, we have 2. This is x, and also in the second term, we have x. This is y, and also we have y in the second term. So we can say our common factor now is 2x, y, right? Now we say when we factor out that common factor, what is it that we have left in the first term? So it's 3x, the ones that are not in the green block. Now when we factor out 2xy in the second term, what is it that we have left? That's minus 5. Now let's go to the third and fourth term. Say what are our common factors here? We can see the common factor is 5, and we also have 5 there. Now, to factor out our common factor, we write it out. And then when we factor out 5, we are left with 3x. And then on that other side, when we factor out 5 from 25, we are only left with 5. So, erase that. So here we are left with 3x, and here we are left with 5. Now, if you can check here, we have a common factor in between the brackets. So because this is a common factor, we only write one of the common factor. So we are grouping that common factor into 1. Now the ones that are left here in green, this we will also group them together into one bracket. And that's how you have your solution. Okay, Let's look at another one. We know the more we do these questions, the more we'll be able to solve them with ease. So with this one, let's break this down. This is 2ab, because we have b squared, and then this is b cubed. How many b's? 3. And then here this is b squared again, so 2b, and then 2ab, right? Now let's look at the common factors. We can see that in the first and second term, we have at least 2 b's in them, right? So now what do we do? B times b is the same as b squared. And then what are we left with when we factor out that one? We are left with 2a in the first term, and we are only left with minus b in the second term. Now, let's look at the common factor between the third and fourth term. So this is b, and that's b. So the common factor is plus b. Now, what is it that we are left with when we factor out b here? We are left with this b, and when we factor out b from the fourth term, we are only left with 2a. Now you can see here we have a situation whereby these factors in the brackets, they are almost similar, but then their signs are different. So this is 2a, but this is negative 2a. This is negative b, and this is positive b. Now, in order to make that a common factor, let's write this down as it is. But to change that to be the same as this one here, we need to factor out a negative sign. So now we have negative b. Now when we factor out a negative sign, it will affect the signs inside the brackets. So this was negative 2a, it becomes positive 2a. This was positive b, it now becomes negative b. But mathematically, I did not change anything, because if you check here, b times b, it's still the same as negative b times negative b. They all give you b squared. And also positive b times negative 2a is the same as having negative b times positive 2a. They will all give you negative 2ab. So the only thing that I did here is to manipulate my equation or my expression so that it looks the same as that one. In that way, we now have a common factor. Let's write our answers out. Now, to start with that other one, we have b squared minus b. And then what is our common factor now? We have 2a. Is it plus or minus? It's minus. Minus b. And that's your solution. Awesome. Now let's go to another one. Let's say this time we're given a squared minus 2a minus ax plus 2x. So let's break down a squared and have it as aa. Then this is minus 2a, and then minus ax plus 2x. Now let's look at our common factors. So in green, let's check our common factors. We have a in the first term, but also in the second term we have a. So the common factor between the first and the second term is a. So what are we going to do? Write out a. Then what are we left with when we factor out a from the first term? We are left with a. What are we left with when we factor out a from the second term? So we are left with minus 2. Now let's look at the third and the fourth term. So we can see what is common there. It's x and x, right? So what do we do with that x? Factor it out. So remember there is a negative there. Now you open a bracket. If you factor out negative x, you are left with positive a. But from here, if you factor out negative x, then you are left with negative 2. Remember, this is the same as saying 2x divided by negative x. So because we are factoring out a negative, the sign has to change in here to a negative. So that negative x times negative 2 can give you that positive 2x. Now let's check what's going on here. We now have a common factor inside the bracket. What do? We write only one of that common factor, and then we group the other ones into their own bracket. Awesome. Another one. Okay, let's try out this one. Now we have, from this one, we can just tell that we have common factors here in the first and second term, because that's y, and we also have y here. But unfortunately, in the third and fourth term, we don't have any like terms. So let's write, we have y, and then inside your brackets, if you factor out y here in the first term, you're only left with 1. This is like y divided by y is 1. And then when you factor out y from the second term, you're only left with x. Then let's write this one plus x minus 1. So if you can check here, our factors are almost similar, but then the signs are not the same. So how do we make this one a common factor of the one that we have here? So we write y, and then we have 1 minus x. And this time, let's factor out negative 1. So we have our brackets there. So that's negative 1. We factor it out as negative. Remember, we don't write that coefficient of 1. Then, now remember, when you factor out a negative, the signs will also be affected. This one was negative 1, it becomes positive 1. So I want to write it the same way as we have it in this bracket, right? And this one was positive x, it now becomes negative x. So again, mathematically, I did not change anything. Negative 1 times positive 1 is still negative 1, and negative 1 times negative x is still positive x. So nothing was changed. Then now, can you see what we did? We just manipulated so that we have a common factor. So our common factor is 1 minus x. And at this point, we want to group the green ones. So this is y minus 1. Remember, there is a negative 1 here. That's how you have it. Okay. What if we are given this one? Now again, we want to look at this one. So this one, we want to tread carefully with this one. If we look at the first term and the second term, we can tell that there are no like terms. What about the the third term and the fourth term? There are like terms, but then what we want to do with this question, the approach is we want to first group them or order them in terms of the like terms that they have, right? So if you can check this one, this is x squared y, and then the last term is 4x squared. So we can see that this one have the same variable and exponent. So it is best that we can just write this close to each other, right? So we arrange them in terms of the like terms that they have. Now that means for the third and fourth term, we'll be left with negative 16 plus 4y, right? Now it becomes easy when it's like this, because at this point you can now see that the first term and the second term, they have a like term, right? Which is x squared. So they have a common factor there. So we can see the first term and the second term, they have a common factor of x squared. Now what do we do with that common factor? We factor it out. Then when we factor out x squared from the first term, we are left with y. And when we factor out x squared from the second term, we are left with minus 4. Now, our numbers are 16 and 4. And we agree that we can write 16 in terms of the factors. So we have 4 multiplied by 4. That gives us 16 plus 4y. At this point, we can see that our common factor is 4 and 4. So what do we do now? We have x squared, and then this is y minus 4. To factor out the minus 4, right? And then if we factor out negative 4 here, we are left with 4. And then remember, we have a negative outside, so this sign has to change. So now we have minus, factoring out 4 here, we have y. Now again, we can see that these expressions, they look similar, but they're not yet common, right? So what do we do? The sign that we have outside here is a negative. So in order to change this one so that it looks the same as this one, we need to do what? Now we need to factor out a positive sign. So if we have a negative, we change it to a positive. If we had a positive, we change it to a negative. So in this case, now we have x squared okay. So we have x squared y minus 4. But remember, we had a negative. Now we are making it positive. So plus 4. When you change the sign, it also changes the content inside the bracket. So now the negative y becomes positive y. And the positive 4 now becomes negative 4. Now, do we have any common factors? It's y minus 4 and y minus 4. What do? We only write one of this common factor, and then we group the remaining terms into their own bracket. And that's how you have it. Okay. Let's look at this one. A challenging one this time. So in this one, what you want to do is, you can see that we still have brackets here. And it's probably best that you multiply into the brackets. So you say negative xy. So here you have negative in bracket y minus x. And then there is a b here, which you can see that it's in an odd place. So you bring it to a good position like that one. So now remember, this is the same, having that negative here and b there. you can just bring the b to this side and now you have negative b. Then plus b squared. Now let's try to solve this one. We have negative xy and then negative b multiply into the bracket, you have negative by, and then negative b times negative x, you have now positive bx and then plus b squared. Right. Now at this point, you now want to check your common factors. Now we have the first term and the second term. What is common in the first and the second term? It's y. And what is common in the third and the fourth term? It's b. So remember, b squared can also be written as bb, right? So the common factor is b. Now let's factor out our common factors. For this one, we're going to have negative y, like that. And then we have x here. Now, since I've factored out a negative, what will happen to the sign? It needs to change. So this will be plus b. So when we factor out the negative y here, we have plus b. So let's just do it like this because it's common. So we factor out negative y, we are left with positive x. We factor out negative y from this side, we are only left with positive b. Now, what is the common factor in the third and fourth term? It's b, right? Then what are we left with? That's x from the third term. And when we factor out b in the fourth term, we are left with b. Now, can we see that we have a common factor inside the brackets? X plus b is your common factor. So we only get to write one of that expression. So that's x plus b, x plus b. But the other ones that are outside the brackets, that's negative y plus b. So you can write it like this. You can say it's b minus y. And that's how you have it. Awesome.